Season's greetings, Nigeria. Well, in the spirit of the season, today is Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. I want to believe you're enjoying yourself and having a very good time, whilst we do not forget and drift away from the essence of the celebration. Good morning and welcome on board. I am Anu Stevens, right here in our Lagos studio, Nigeria. We are turning our attention to the dynamics of Christmas celebration. Now, you would agree with me that how we celebrated Christmas a couple of years ago is not how we're celebrating it now. What has changed? What are some of those significant elements that we have seen so far so good? So I would love to read a scripture, Luke 1 verse 30, and it says, "And the angel said to her, 'Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God, and behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, and he will be great, and will be called the Son of the Most High God.'" Well, joining me this morning virtually right here in Lagos is Pastor Okesola Moses. He is a clergyman right here in Lagos State. Thank you so much for joining. Merry Christmas, Pastor.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so now let's start with the reason for the celebration, because honestly, I feel a lot of persons just celebrate what to December, and we know that once it's December, we're going to have rice, chicken, whatever it is that you can afford. But why do we celebrate? What is the significance of Christmas?
Yeah, thank you, Anu, for having me once again. The purpose of Christmas, I will look at it from three perspectives. Number one is to celebrate the love of God for mankind. I say that uh, because there was a divine intervention from God to rescue the human race from destruction. So, despite what played out in the Garden of Eden, the fall of man, God was still very, very much interested in saving the race of mankind. And that was why he sent Jesus. So, number one, to celebrate the love of Christ. Number two, which is also very, very important to every generation, is to understand that there's a need to go back to the beginning. God wants to rebuild men to be able to live for him. And that was why Christ came. So the second one is to reflect on the Lord Jesus and also trust God to help us to live the same way. And so it's about changing our lifestyle to suit the purpose of God. So that's the second one. The third one also is also to show love to all men. All men, doesn't matter their race, their color, their religion. And so the whole celebration of Christmas is about the love of God. So that John chapter 3, verse 16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave us his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes shall not perish, but have everlasting life." So that is the critical need for Christmas. That's why we are celebrating Christmas. Thank
Now,
you.
now let's go down memory lane. You will agree with me that how we were celebrating Christmas a couple of years ago is different from how we're celebrating it now. Now, what are some of those things that have changed, and what are those new innovation that we have seen at this point?
Well, unfortunately, if I have to use that word, you see, there are two things we should look at in the evolution of Christmas. One remains the same, which has to do with the message of Christmas. The message of Christmas has never changed. Uh, it's centered around Jesus, it's centered around salvation. And so the message of God never changed. So it's the same. yesterday, today, and forever. So what he's telling us now is what he has told them thousands of years ago. Without Jesus, no one will see the Father. And so that has not changed. But what has evolved over time, as I rightly asked, is the approach to celebrating Christmas. Well, when it first started from the Western world, there was a, there was a conflict of interest at the time between one pagan celebration that in a way coincides with Christmas, where they celebrate the emergence of longer nights, shorter day, from German tradition, and in line with that. And so, but Empire were trying to dissuade people from this idolatry, and that was why the idea of Christmas came after 300 AD, to be able to celebrate the birth of Jesus. So from that time, a lot of things has changed. Let me say a few things that you might seem like have evolved. At that time, I think what they normally do is to have a Christmas tree. Sometimes some people also come together for family reunion. People, put gifts together to give to the less privileged. And so over many years, what you can say is individual perspective to it. Individual perspective to it, not necessarily institutional change, which has to do with the Church of Christ. So it is how we celebrate. Some, as you know, do not celebrate Christmas. Some are celebrating. Some, I can tell you, as of today now, they are somewhere, doing evangelical outreach, reaching out to those who do not know the Lord in the villages, in the hamlets. So, but you have some people who think Christmas is a time for holiday, and so they are traveling around the world. So people have different reasons, or let me say, the approach why they are celebrating Christmas. Right. But as I've told you, nothing has changed about the message of Christmas.
Now, still staying on the message of Christmas, just as you said, you talked about conflict and division, and I would love us to stay on it a little bit, because we know that right here in Nigeria, interestingly, there are some persons who do not celebrate Christmas at all. I know at some point Jehovah's Witnesses were celebrating, but as we speak, they no longer celebrate. Church of Christ do not celebrate Christmas, if I'm correct. And we also have Mountain of Fire and some other persons. I mean, GKS, God's Kingdom Society, will tell you that Jesus Christ was born in October. Other Christians would say, no, it's December 25th. So what do you make out of all of this division in the body of Christ?
Well, number one, that is very, very important, is that does Christ worth celebrating at all times? Yes, that's very, very. Yes, was Christ born on 25th of December? We didn't see that in the Bible. Well, you see, why some church assemblies may not be celebrating Christmas was simply because of the historical information which I mentioned earlier. There used to be a tradition of winter solstice where at that period there is astronomical discovery that the moon, no, the sun rather, the half of the earth is farther away from the sun at a particular time from the northern hemisphere, and so there's a longer day tonight. So such people from Germany, and some other part of Western Europe, that's when they started celebrating that tradition. So that date it's always from 21 of December, sometime to 25th. So as I've told you, Roman Empire came up with 25th of December to counter that traditional, celebration for Christmas. So I think there is a misconception that it is a pagan celebration. Well, I don't agree with that. What is important is that Christ is worth celebrating at all times. So if the Church of Christ agrees, which I believe, that 25th of December all over the world should be a time to celebrate the birth of Jesus, I think it's worth celebrating. And we should not think of it to be a pagan worship. It's not a pagan worship. We're only trying to appreciate God for giving us Jesus. So for churches that are not celebrating it, well, I don't think they've done anything wrong, but they must also not say those who are celebrating Christmas are into pagan worship. That's all I can say about that.
Okay. Are there other misconceptions about Christmas in your own view and what you've observed over time, especially with persons who get to celebrate Christmas every single year? Do you see some drifting? Are there other misconceptions?
You're very correct. One very important misconception is the understanding that people have about Christmas. And I told you from the first thing I said, what has changed is individual, approach to celebrating Christmas. Some, think Christmas is a time to feast. There's nothing wrong in feasting with your family, but you see, it's the most important thing of the Christmas is to reflect on our relationship with God. And so if that is out of our consideration during Christmas, that means we are not really celebrating Christmas. So take, for example, the season in question, which we are talking about Christmas, for a true Christian, you need to ask some questions. How far have you gone with God? Are you doing in the Lord? Are you also carrying the gospel of Christ to people? How much have you done to, enlarge God's kingdom? Those are the important things, because the essence of his birth is not for rice and stew or festivity or buying clothes. You can do all those ones, but that's not the major thing. So there is misconception from individual perspective, and that's what makes Christmas looks like is not well celebrated. As a matter of fact, a lot of misconceptions. But that one I've just mentioned is very critical. It's not about clothing. It's about reflecting on, why it came for me. What can I do to work better with the Lord? How can I reach out to the unreached? Yes, it can be a time to give people something. That's fine. But that's the misconception I see.
Okay. So speaking about being a time to give people something, let's go back to the Holy Book, where we saw when the story of how Jesus Christ was born came on board. We saw that wise men brought out gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The season of Christmas is also attributed to giving gifts. Now, how do you approach all of this, especially when you do not have plenty?
Let me be sincere with you. See, God does not need anything from you until you have given your heart to him. Whatever you give to anyone, when you are not yet ready, by your decision to surrender your life to Christ, might be a waste. But having said that, at the time of Christmas, how do we approach giving? Of course, it should be the less privileged. The focus should be the less privileged, other than giving to people of your household. There are people to reach out to, even the unchurched, even the people who are not Christian, people that are in motherless homes, people who are on the street, who that looks like there's no hope, because the one of the pillars of the birth of Christ is giving hope to the world. So at that time, everyone that will be engaging in giving will take it to the hopeless, those who have gotten to a level that nobody's looking up to them, that possibly God has forgotten them. And so I think that is the best way to give during Christmas. You know, there are a lot of places around that we can go to and be a blessing to them, not to people of our household, you know, people outside, and we can be a blessing to them. I think that would be acceptable to God if we give in that direction. But that will give hope to them that God is still sending some people to them to be of help, you know. But if I give to people of my household that have already been giving from time to time, well, I don't think I'm giving correctly in the time of Christmas.
So this year's Christmas in Nigeria, the celebration would be incomplete if we do not go back and talk about what happened last week in Nigeria, where we did see the stampede in Ibadan, Anambra, and also Abuja as well. Because I'd love to dwell down a little bit regarding what you said, as regarding the giving, the giving of gifts and sharing, and just ensuring that you put a smile on somebody's face, especially to the less privileged. What do you make out of what happened last week? And do you see another reoccurrence in the coming year?
Let me just send my condolences first to families that have lost their loved ones. I think in Anambra, in Abuja, and in Ibadan, on account of giving palliatives. That's one. Number two, I also do not want to blame those who organized the program. I think what went wrong was the organization of how that event should have taken place. Well, I feel so bad about it, but at the root of it is poverty. It's poverty, because I'm from Oyo State, and I was told that the incidents at Ibadan, you know, people came from Ogbomoso, from different parts of the states. You can imagine coming from not less than 50-kilometer a city to come and collect a palliative. I don't know what is in that palliative. Well, I think it shows that a lot of people do not have, their needs are not met, you know. So there is a do in pushing the effect of the economy, so that at least people operate at the low range, you know, when it comes to their needs. So I think this is very important for government to look at and see how best can they cushion the effect, you know, of this harsh economy that is going on. That's number one. Number two, also, well, there can be a policy in that regard. Government can look at a policy way that if you want to organize a program like that, the whole, apparatus of government can be involved, so that they can manage the crowd, as they've rightly said, so that we won't have a repeat of this next time. So that's all I can say.
Right. Pastor, okay, so just before we go, because time is moving pretty fast this morning, I would want you to talk about and address something that is quite, that we get to see happen during this period. I don't know, in Nigeria, especially towards the Ember period, we see a lot of persons put pressure on themselves, pressure to achieve, pressure to ensure that you have a wonderful celebration during the Utah season. What's the brain behind the pressure, and how do you think moving forward persons can address putting unnecessary pressure on yourself?
You see, I have a say that you don't spend from your wishes, you earn from what you earn, and that's biblical, and that's a very factual about life. The truth is, if you have to put pressure on yourself to celebrate Christmas, Some can go ahead to borrow money. That's not the mind of Christ. What God wants us to do during Christmas, whatever He gives to you, if at all there's a need to celebrate, is enough. Whatever God gives to you is enough. It's not about putting pressure. So where you see people that are putting pressure on themselves, I can say genuinely that certain things are wrong with their attitude. It may not necessarily be because of Christmas alone. One, there could be such people who love to compare themselves with. Exactly. And so when you have that kind of attitude, you want to be like others, to do anything. So you can put pressure on yourself. You also have a category of people that really want people to know that they have something. It's not necessary. Christ, if you read the Bible says in the book of Isaiah, before he was born, that the Christ that will come has no comeliness by which anyone can behold him. He has no comeliness. And that was why when he came, the Jews rejected him. He didn't look like the Messiah they were expecting. So anyone who is not simple in life is not also following Christ. It is unchristian to be putting pressure on yourself because you want to celebrate Christmas. I think that is not the way to go.
So basically, say no to pressure. And of course, Christmas is not a time and it's not a season for you to show off, for you to compare yourself with your brother or your colleague. Just live within your means, basically. And I get to see that our president's administration is doing the best it can to ensure that all of Nigerians manage and live within your means. But I really must thank you so much, Pastor Okeshola Moses. Thank you for finding our time to join us this morning. Hopefully, we'll do this again another time.
Thank you, Anu. Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day too. And I'm pretty much going to come for my Christmas chicken, the rice and everything. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas.
You'll be welcome. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Right. Bye. So that's our bit this morning right here in Lagos. The celebration is still on, and I'm sure in Benin, Christmas Igbadan is all set already.